is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, alleged military intelligence operatives in collaboration with the Philippine National Police are continuously monitoring KOJC missionaries and their activities outside the KOJC central headquarters. Vice President Sara Duterte, who has experienced similar tactics, claimed this is a common police strategy used to harass their targets. Meanwhile, the Kingdom of Jesus Christ remained resolute amid the threat of potential second wave of attacks by the PNP. The KOJC reaffirms its unwavering commitment to safeguarding all of its religious compounds and vows never to abandon the hard-earned sacrifices, blood, sweat, and tears of its members. For our global top stories, as Asia experienced a wave of political upheaval, with leaders falling amidst scandals and protests, the coming months will reveal whether these shifts lead to genuine reform or increased instability. In other news, pro-Palestine protesters rallied outside Kamala Harris' campaign event in Manhattan on Wednesday, branding her the VP of Genocide and calling for an arms embargo on Israel following the Biden administration's approval of $20 billion arms sale to the country. And the World Health Organization has taken decision actions in response to a rapidly spreading Mpox outbreak in Africa. Originating in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the viral infection has now spread to several neighboring countries, prompting the WOH to declare a global public health emergency for the second time in 2 years. I'm Deivid. Lira, Newsline World starts now. First in the news, alleged military intelligence operatives in collaboration with the Philippine National Police are continuously monitoring KOJC missionaries and their activities outside the KOJC central headquarters. Vice President Sara Duterte, who has experienced similar tactics, claimed this is a common police strategy used to harass their targets. Let's hear more from Jason Rubrico.
Despite the recent Senate hearing regarding the Philippine National Police's excessive force against the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the continued surveillance and casing by alleged members of the Military Intelligence Group or Intelligence Service of the Armed Forces of the Philippines has not stopped. On the night of August 14, 2024, 2 men were spotted stationed outside the office of a mining company across from the KOJC central headquarters, apparently alongside police officers who were also positioned there. They were consistently taking videos and pictures of KOJC missionaries and vehicles coming in and out of the religious compound. They were also using binoculars. When approached, they consistently denied taking videos and photos. They also claimed not to be together, contrary to video footage of them.
Kanina pa po namin kayo nakikita ng picture doon.
Man tanawan mo ma'am nga walay picture.
Hindi kasama po ninyo. Bakit po?
One of their companions hid in the garden and pretended to be talking on the cell phone while walking away.
Sir! Sir, kanina pa po kasi namin kayo nakikita na nagpi-picture po dun sa ano namin.
Ma'am, wala ma'am, hilom po ma'am kay nako kuan ma'am, mas importante ma'am.
Mas importante.
Oh yes ma'am.
Pero kanina pa po kasi namin.
Ma'am, kare lang ma'am, akong anak na kuan na ni ma'am.
Sige, wag ka muna maglakad.
Ma'am, gusto mo ma'am.
Sandali, kasi yung anak daw niya, sandali lang.
Wala na, kunwari na namin mga MIG ba mga ISAP.
Nagtataka lang po kasi kami, kanina pa po kayo video ng video dun sa lugar po namin. Hindi po namin alam, baka po kayo ay PNP, NPA.
KOJC missionaries tried to ask for help from the police stationed there, arguing that they were present for police visibility and to assist during incidents. But
Sir, magandang gabi. Sir, kayo, sila po ang opisyal? any concern.
Niyo po na nandito, na meron kayong mga question, query po ma'am. Kasi meron po akong COP. So siya po yung may karapatan na magsalita, hindi po kami.
Ma'am, sabi niyo po kasi police visibility, right?
Yes ma'am, nandito kami with mobile ma'am kasi ano dito, may mga disgrasya, may mga concern na dito din sa area namin. Kami ang nag-a-assist ma'am.
The suspicious men had previously denied that the police were with them. But on the morning of August 15, 2024, they returned to the front of the KOJC central headquarters and were caught on video talking to the police they had earlier denied associating with. Vice President Sara Duterte, who has a similar experience, says that surveillance and casing are modes of harassment used by the police.
Kasi yung mga surveillance, yung mga casing, ano yan ganyan mangharas ang PNP. Modus yan ng PNP pag gusto nilang mangharas ng tao. So, depende na yan sa iyo kung papansinin mo, maiirita ka, or kung anong gagawin mo.
Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa has also criticized the police for their wrong methods in attempting to arrest Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy.
In their quest na maaresto si Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, halos lahat na ng tao ng Davao kinakalaban na nila, hinaharas na nila at kanila nang ina-antagonize. Mali po na approach yan. Maling-mali na approach yan.
De la Rosa also adds that the National Police is wasting resources. He says that the injustice being done in Davao is unfair.
Hinahanap mo isang tao, apat na tao na may warrant of arrest. Granting na yun nga, duty niyo yan, nahanapin yan. But in doing so, you need not antagonize the whole community of Davao City na parang hinaharas na niyo palagi, nagsushow force na lang kayo palagi. That's a waste of resources. That's a waste of resources actually. You intimidate your own people, gano'n na pala, kasi hindi niyo makita yung hinahanap ninyo na may warrant of arrest, i-intimidate na niyo ang kalahatan ng mga tao. That's unfair. That's injustice. That's unjust sa mga tao ng Davao.
For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SM9 News.
The Senate hearing on the excessive force used by the National Police during the service of an arrest warrant for Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy and 5 others on June 10 seems to have had little effect. This is because the police are reportedly planning another operation on the KOJC religious compounds. The Church's legal counsel have issued a warning in this regard. Ina Mortel reports.
Nearly 2 months after the PNP-SAF and CIDG battalions stormed the Kingdom of Jesus Christ religious compounds on June 10, 2024, there are reports of plans to attack their homes again in the coming days. This information was relayed to KOJC by their legal counsel, Attorney Israelito Torjon, who has issued a warning to the Davao City Police if this second wave materializes, especially since the initial operation was illegal.
This serves as a warning po sa mga kaibigan po natin ng mga Davao City Police, no, na gagamitin sa second wave daw. Nakareceive ako ng text messages kanina po na nag-create daw ng team na lulusob na naman daw sila dito sa compound ng KOJC. Pakisabi lang po sa inyong general na kung wala kayong alias warrant of arrest, no, ilang beses na po kayo nag-serve po dito sa KOJC, definitely the KOJC authorities may not allow you anymore to enter the properties voluntarily, no? And you might be included in the cases that will be filed. Pasensyahan na po, wala pong personalan ito. Please require your general. Ask your general, sir, meron ba tayong alias warrant of arrest po dito? Kasi kailangan tayo na mag-file ng motion pursuant to the rules eh.
It is worth noting that during a recent Senate hearing led by Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, regarding the excessive force used by the PNP against KOJC, Davao Region Police Chief Nicolas Torre III stated that the arrest warrant was still valid, even though they failed to capture their target, Pastor Apollo. During the Senate hearing, Torre requested that 1,500 personnel be deployed to reside within the KOJC religious compound, particularly in the Kingdom, for a month to conduct a thorough search in hopes of capturing Pastor Apollo. Meanwhile, according to attorney Adam Jambangan, another KOJC legal counsel, the police not only lacked a search warrant when they entered the religious compounds on June 10, but the arrest warrant they carried was also questionable.
Kapag na-serve na yung warrant of arrest, and then hindi na-aresto yung dapat na i-arrest, the peace officer is bound to make a report and then inform the court bakit hindi na-aresto yung dapat na arestuhin. In this case, there was already a return by the peace officer kasi hindi nga nila na-aresto last June 10. And then there was already a report. Therefore, if you do another series or another wave of doing the arrest, the rules would require you to have that. You should be armed with that. And that is only issued by the court. Ang question ngayon is, meron bang in-order na or meron na bang inisyo ang court for the issuance of the alias warrant? I believe wala. So that is the reason why, aside from the issue of excessiveness, the main instrument mismo doon na ginamit nila is also questionable.
Meanwhile, on August 5, according to Sister Eleanor Cardona, Executive Secretary of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, the PNP-SAF brutally attacked the KOJC farm in Tamayang, Davao City at 2 in the morning.
Mga inosente na mga farmers na tinutulungan din ni Pastor, binigyan sila ng chance na mamuhay, sinusuportahan. Anong ginawa nyo? Blatantly, kung masahol kayo nung June 10, mas masahol kayo nung August 5. Diba? Tinutukan nyo na ng baril, pinadapa nyo, hinubaran nyo, minudbud pa yung mga mukha nila. Ginapos nyo yung lawyer namin, hinarangan ninyo. Papunta na ang yung lawyer, hinarangan ninyo. Yung media, hinarangan ninyo. Ayaw nyo may mag-cover. Bakit? Kasi inaatake nyo na pala yung isang compound namin.
According to Attorney Diana Tolentino Fuentes, the illegal actions of the police have increased.
Yung pagsulong ho, paglusob po sa ungguyan, there was no search warrant at all that the armed forces showed. I do not know if these armed forces are actually police or not, whether or they were just made to dress up in police uniforms. Pero wala ho silang pinakita na search warrant that would allow them to enter the property and search the premises. They did not also, there was also no indication at all that would allow them to tie up the people na tutukan ng baril in the presence of young children. So since walang search warrant at all, they had no basis to do what they did. That is, aside from being an overreach, an overkill, and at the same time, very much illegal.
It is worth noting that KOJC has already filed numerous cases against the authorities behind the violent and illegal operations of their religious compounds. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Ina Mortel, SMNA News.
The darkest chapter in Philippine history, martial law in 1972, is once again looming under the regime of Marcos Jr. And Davao City is said to be the starting point, according to a former cadre of the CPP-NP and DF. Jade Calabruso reports.
Is martial law happening now? That's the common sentiment among the residents of Davao City, particularly the missionaries of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, who are experiencing harassment and oppression from the abusive government of Marcos Jr. The government is blatantly instilling fear and terror, openly violating the law. This began on June 10, 2024, when multiple battalions of PNP-SAF forces simultaneously and violently attacked the religious compounds of the KOJC, allegedly to serve an arrest warrant for 6 accused individuals, including Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. However, after failing to capture the accused, the police have not stopped harassing KOJC members. Missionaries report that police surveillance is constant, with 24/7 monitoring of their homes, checkpoints set up around the area, drones flying day and night, and other reported violence of their rights. At a KOJC press conference, the ongoing harassment by Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s regime, the son of the notorious dictator, was again highlighted. According to Jeffrey K. Eric Celis, a former intelligence officer of the CPP, NPA, NDF, and now an anchor on SMNI, Marcos Jr. is targeting Davao City, the home of the Dutertes, to silently reintroduce martial law. He claims this is part of Marcos Jr.'s political persecution against the Dutertes and their allies.
Ang buong Davao City po ay naging isang buhay na laboratorio ng martial law version 2 ni Marcos Jr. Hindi niya idinideklara, hindi niya inaamin, subalit ito ang kanyang ginagawa. Ito, ang martial law laboratory ni Marcos sa Davao City ay isang political persecution, isang personal vendetta upang ang kanyang mga perceived political enemies at mga kaalyado ng kanyang perceived political enemies na tinitingnan niyang kasama doon sa mga grupo na malapit sa mga Duterte ay kanyang gustong lumpuin at igupo. Yan ang ginagawa niya ngayon kay Pastor Kibuloy.
Celis describes the actions of the Marcos regime as state-sponsored terrorism, which he claims is even worse than the symptoms seen during the martial law of his dictator father, Ferdinand Marcos Sr.
Never seen before since the time of the declaration of martial law in 1972. Nakakabahala po ito sapagkat maliban noong August 5, binalik nila ulit noong August 7 and 8, 2 araw magkasunod. Habang tayo nag-uusap, pinasok nila muli ang Tamayong District na ito. Ang Kalinan District, ang Tamayong at paligid nito at nagsagawa ng tinatawag na zoning and hamleting. Ano po ang zoning? Ang zoning po ay ang pagbabahay-bahay illegal na ginagawa sa panahon ng martial law kung ikaw ay naghahanap ng mga rebelde at terorista. Pero mga civilian population po ito na mga magsasaka, magbubukid, manggagawang bukid at mga katutubo at mga full-time religious workers ang nakatira dito. Hindi po mga bandido, tulisan o terorista. Sinusuna nila ang mga bahay at mga sityo at walang search warrant o ano pa mang mandamiento mula sa korte, bit-bit nila mga matataas na kalibre ng armas. Ang hamleting ay ang pagkontrol ng movement ng mga tao upang sila ay sikilin sa kanilang paggalaw sa isang komunidad. Sapagkat naniniwala sila na nandito lang sa paligid si Pastor Kibuloy at ang kanyang mga ministro.
According to political commentator E.B. Hugalbot, what is happening in Davao City is also a way for the Marcos regime to establish authoritarian rule in the country.
The only test case or litmus test of that authoritarian form of terrorism or display is to go to Davao itself. Because pag hindi pumalag yung mga Davaoenyo, they will be emboldened to do it somewhere else.
Meanwhile, in an interview, Vice President Sara Duterte also believes that politics is the reason for the intense harassment against Pastor Apollo.
Unang-una, alay siya ni former President Rodrigo Duterte. Tumulong din siya sa kampanya ko nung ako ay tumakbong Vice President. So merong anggulo dyan na politika. Tapos gusto siyang kunin ng US government.
Celis adds that Marcos is being used by the United States to take control of the Philippines for its interests.
Sapagkat si Marcos po ay nagiging instrumento ng panibagong paghahari ng Amerika sa ating bansa upang manumbalik ang neo-kolonyal o ang kanilang panibagong pangungulunya sa Pilipinas. At dahil dyan may mga bagay si Marcos, perang ninakaw ng kanilang pamilya na nakatago at naka-frozen din sa Amerika, ang kanyang pangungunyapit sa poder na hindi siya mahuhulog habang sinusuportahan sa ng Amerika at hindi siya makukudita o ano pa mga banta sa kanyang kapangyarihan na nakasandig sa Amerika. Isasakripisyo si Pastor at ang mga Duterte para mawala ang political threats nila both ng Amerika at ng mga Marcos.
It is remembered that upon the entry of the Marcos regime, the Philippines' foreign policy suddenly shifted to a pro-American stance. During Marcos Jr.'s term, cases against Pastor Apollo that had already been dismissed by the country's courts were revived. Even the franchise of SMNI, known as former President Rodrigo Duterte's platform, is under threat of being revoked. This week, the Court of Appeals issued a freeze order on the properties of Pastor Apollo and other KOJC leaders, including the Children's Joy Foundation Incorporated and SMNI. However, KOJC insists that Pastor Apollo does not personally own any properties as they operate under a Commonwealth System, and CGFI and SMNI are independent organizations. Meanwhile, KOJC previously announced that the Marcos region plans to seize their properties. For God, my beloved Philippines, this has been Jade Calabroso, SMNI News.
It is evident that the police in full battle gear jogging in front of the central headquarters of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ are intimidating, while the church's missionaries are praying, according to the Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. In this regard, the senator also criticized the national police's flawed approach in searching for and arresting Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy. Let's hear more from Jason Rubrico.
Since April 13, 2004.
The serious prayers of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ missionaries were once again disturbed by police. But this time, they used a different style. Where have you ever seen hundreds of police in full battle gear while jogging? Only here in front of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ at 5 in the morning on this Tuesday. As usual, only their eyes are visible. Even their nameplates are covered.
He is no longer in power.
But when the sirens sounded inside the KOJC religious compound, the police suddenly made a U-turn back to Camp Katitipan. In an interview with SMNI News, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa stated that while police jogging cannot be stopped because it's on public roads, their intentions are clear.
Alata na masyado talaga kung ano yung purpose niyan. Kung intimidate ko sinong dapat mag-intimidate. Sige lang, take and take lang tayo. Nothing is forever.
Previously, they did the same in Barangay Tamayong, where the Prayer Mountain is located, one of KOJC's religious compounds, attacked on June 10, 2024. They performed foot patrols in the area without any explanation of their purpose. This caused fear among Tamayong residents, especially the children. Senator Bato also criticized the police for their excessive force, almost opposing the people of Davao just because they want to arrest Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy.
In their quest na maaresto si Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, halos lahat na ng tao ng Davao kinakalaban na nila, hinaharas na nila at kanila nang ina-antagonize. Mali po na approach yan. Maling-mali na approach yan.
Senator De La Rosa adds that the national police are wasting resources. He claims their actions in Davao are injustice.
Hinahanap mo isang tao, apat na tao na may warrant of arrest. Granting na yun nga, duty niyo yan, nahanapin yan. But in doing so, you need not antagonize the whole community of Davao City na parang hinaharas na niyo palagi, nagsushow force na lang kayo palagi. That's a waste of resources. You intimidate your own people kasi hindi niyo makita yung hinahanap ninyo na may warrant of arrest. I-intimidate na niyo ang kalahatan ng mga tao. That's unfair. That's injustice. That's unjust sa mga tao ng Davao.
Recently, KOJC Legal Counsel received information from a reliable source about another police attack on the religious compounds. Attorney Israelito Torion issued a warning.
This serves as a warning po sa mga kaibigan po natin ng mga Davao City Police, no, na gagamitin sa second wave daw. Naka-receive ako ng text messages kanina po na nag-create daw ng team na lulusob na naman daw sila dito sa compound ng KOJC. Pakisabi lang po sa inyong general na kung wala kayong alias warrant of arrest, no, ilang beses na po kayo nag-serve po dito sa KOJC, definitely the KOJC authorities may not allow you anymore to enter the properties voluntarily, no? And you might be included in the cases that will be filed. Pasensyahan na po, wala pong personalan ito. Please require your general. Ask your general, sir, meron ba tayong alias warrant of arrest po dito? Kasi kailangan tayo na mag-file ng motion pursuant to the rules eh.
Early in the morning of June 10, 2024, a combined force of PNP-SAF, CIDG attacked 4 KOJC religious compounds, causing fear and trauma to KOJC missionaries and children. These also resulted in the death of 2 members of the Blaan tribe in Kitbog. On August 5, 2024, police also attacked the KOJC farm in Barangay Tamayong. destroying KOJC missionaries' houses, forcing them to the ground, and aiming high-caliber guns at them. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SM9 News.
KOJC executives expressed their gratitude for the steadfast support in exposing and addressing the government's wrongful actions against the church. Sheena Torno reports.
Almost 2 months have passed, but the fear and trauma caused by the illegal attack by the so-called law enforcers on the religious compound of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ, or KOJC, are still fresh in the minds and hearts of the missionaries. Young people, women, and elderly feel anxious whenever they see armed police in the religious compounds after the violent police assault on June 10. However, the harassment and intimidation against KOJC did not end there, as cops recently put up a pointless checkpoint right in front of the central compound in Katitiban, Davao City. Police officers hid in the darkness, faces were covered, vehicle plates concealed, and the worst part was they refused to explain the reason behind their actions. Early this week, they once again illegally attacked one of the KOJC farms in Ungguyan, Tamayong, Davao City, where they pointed guns at farmers, tied them up, and seized their phones. The possibility of another illegal attack on the KOJC religious compounds has not been ruled out.
Gusto ko lang manawagan na talaga. Kaya the only recourse na pwede namin gawin ngayon ay tawagan ng Eastern Mindanao Command ng Armed Forces of the Philippines, EastMincom. Kung nanonood at nakikinig po kayo, Sir, General, Colonel, wala na hong magtatanggol sa amin dito sa mga pang-aabuso ng PNP. Diretsahan na ho namin sinasabi kasi mismong si General Torre na nagsabi.
Nalulusubin niya.
Nalulusubin niya kami. At hindi baling dumanak ang dugo. Ganun siya ka, ganun siya ka gaprutal, kahambog, kabastos. Kawalang walang modo.
Bobo.
No.
Kung gusto niyo po na talagang mapagsilbi pa sa ating bayan at maiwasan ang isang madugong masaker, tulungan niyo na po ang KOJC. Mga mapapayapang tao ho itong mga ito, pero hindi nila i-give up ang kanilang bahay. Bahay po nila ito.
Tama.
Coach Ollie, one of SMNI's anchors, questions the politician who are friends of KOJC and Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy. Why do high-ranking officials of the Marcos administration seem afraid, especially when it comes to KOJC?
Ako nga po ay medyo nalulungkot nung naririnig ko yon kasi posible ito maging madugo.
Yeah.
Magiging madugo na ito. Sana merong kumilos dyan na nasa taas na inaantay namin na makapangyarihan, baka naman po pwede na kayong gumitna.
Boss Dada, another SMNI anchor, emphasized that the violent attack that caused severe trauma, especially to the youth, should never happen again.
Hindi na po sila papayag na lapastanganin nyo ulit yung kanilang karapatan. Lalaban po sila sa inyo. Ang gamit po nila is yung faith nila at saka yung pagmamahal nila dito sa kanilang blood, sweat, and tears na ipinundar sa kanilang mga ari-arian. Wag naman sanang mangyari yung mga matitinong mga nandito masaktan or mamatay dahil lang dun sa inyong personal na greed.
These appeals from SMNI anchors and political commentators extend beyond KOJC, reaching out to all individuals and groups facing oppression under Marcos Jr.'s administration.
Paulit-ulit yung paglabag mismo nila ng batas and they don't care. No, it's very flagrant, it's very brazen, harap-harapan. Like Ma'am Nori said sa Senate nga paulit-ulit yung pagsisinungaling nila. So may I also please talk to yung mga matitino pa na PNP, retired or active. I know a lot of you. I respect so many of you. So many of you are my closest friends, are our closest friends. And I know that you are men and women of honor. And I know that you gave your life to this institution. You willingly gave your life to this institution. At nakita ninyo maraming namatay na mga kasama ninyo, mga tao ninyo na willingly gave up their lives for the PNP to have enjoyed their highest trust ratings under President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Thus, they call on the public.
Siguro manawagan na rin tayo sa social media. Kasi paglusob dito at mangyayari po yan, ila-live po, nakahanda po ang taga KOJC. Ila-live nila yan. Posibleng ibablock yan at hawak naman ng itong mga pulis kung anumang gamit. No? Pag live, kung merong sa inyo, sa mga ating nasa social media, mga kaibigan, i-live nyo rin. Ikalat nyo, tawagan nyo yung mga pulis, tawagan nyo yung mga abogado, itawagan nyo yung mga AFP, mga kakilala ninyo. Tulungan po natin ang KOJC nang sa ganon, kumalat lahat bago maputol yung kanilang pagla-live. Kasi I'm sure ipuputulin yan.
KOJC executives expressed their gratitude for the unwavering support that the KOJC is receiving in the face of the adversaries.
Maraming salamat kay Eric at maraming salamat sa inyo sa panel ngayon at yun nga, yung suporta nyo sa KOJC dahil nga sa ating nababalitaan may informasyon sa muling paglusob o yung Oplan Parokya 2 ng mga kapulisan. At salamat din sa lahat ng suporta. Talagang pinagkaloob ng ating Ama na para maipahiwatig at mapaalam sa lahat ng mga tunay na nangyayari sa ating bansa.
For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
The Supreme Court denied issuing an order for mandatory drug testing for all employees and court personnel. Meanwhile, some residents in Manila support the proposed mandatory drug testing for government officials. Margot Gonzalez has a report.
Recently, a video allegedly showing Marcos Jr. inhaling a white powdery substance went viral. The video was released by online political commentator Maharlika. Former government employees expressed concern about the state of the country if the president is indeed using illegal drugs, as it could affect his decisions and policies. Marcos Jr. then was urged to undergo drug test.
Kinakailangan sumailalim na siya sa hair follicle drug test nang lumabas na ang katotohanan. At karapatan po namin bilang mga mamamayang Pilipino na malaman ang katotohanan sa mga paratang na ito.
Davao Congressman Paulo Duterte, on the other hand, proposed a bill requiring the president and other elected officials to undergo routine mandatory drug tests every 6 months while in office. Many residents in Manila agree with the proposed measure.
Madedetect natin kung sino talaga yung gumagamit or sino yung hindi. And then, syempre, for safety na rin ng mga tao. So, mas magandang may mandatory or random at least. Kung i-qualify natin sila as public officials, dapat malinis yung record nila or might as well may mandatory, kumbaga, na-check sila ng at least kahit hindi for transparency purposes, ma-determine natin na dapat mayroong drug test sa kanila or nasa tamang pag-iisip sila. Kasi pwedeng pwedeng gawin nila okay sila pero pag nandun na sila nakapwesto, iba yung balak nila or masama yung gagawin nila.
Para ma-assure natin na lahat nasa tamang pag-iisip. Tama yung decision making, especially sa kanila. Diba? Sila yung namamahala sa atin. Siya yung natin head Dapat malinis din siya. So maganda yung pagpapatakbo niya ng bansa.
Una-una sa decision making na mga ginagawa nila, dapat capable ka doon kasi mahirap na pag drug user, yun talaga ang unang-unang hindi natin mapagkakatiwalaan pagdating sa decision making kasi doon din natin malalaman or magiging ba siya, productive ba siya sa ginagawa niya.
Kailangan talaga siya mandatory kasi sa mga kahit tayo ordinaryo tao kailangan, di ba? Dapat pati sa mga government natin. Wala sa lahat, di natin sila kilala rin So, kilala natin sila kapag kampanya, pero sa talagang personality nila, hindi natin sila kilala.
Alam naman natin na pag gumagamit, marami pong masamang epekto.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has received a social media post claiming that it will implement mandatory drug testing for employees and court officials under a circular it issued. However, the Supreme Court stated that there is no such order.
This is utterly false.
The OCA circular issued by the court administrator just mandated the annual physical examinations of judges and court personnel on or before October 15, 2024. So, under the basic annual physical examinations, hindi po kasama ang drug testing. Although the circular stated that under the Judiciary Health Plan and our contract with Kaiser, which is our health service provider, there is random drug testing, but this has not been implemented yet. So what we really required is just a basic annual physical examination, which just consists of blood tests, urinalysis, all because the Supreme Court would like to make sure that their judges and court personnel are healthy.
In an earlier statement, Attorney Ting clarified that the circular from the Office of the Court Administrator specifies random basis, meaning only selected judges and employees of the first and second level courts will be required to undergo drug test. SC also clarified that the random drug tests long implemented in the Supreme Court are unrelated to and do not express support for the proposed bill filed in the House of Representatives.
The circular should not be construed in that way because random drug testing has been around in the Supreme Court for their employees ever since before, so it has nothing to do with the bill that is currently pending in Congress.
For God and beloved Philippines, this has been Margaret Gonzalez, SMNI News.
Dengue cases in the Philippines increased by 33% this year compared to 2023, according to the Health Department. Meanwhile, the number of deaths due to leptospirosis have reached over 40. Riceline Catarong filed this report.
The Department of Health is now focused on the increase in cases of leptospirosis and dengue following the ravages of the monsoon and Typhoon Karina. From January 1 to August 3 of this year, the DOH recorded more than 136,000 dengue cases in the Philippines. According to DOH spokesperson Assistant Secretary Albert Domingo, the said number is higher by 33% compared to the same period in 2023, which was more than 102,000. However, the number of deaths due to dengue in 2024 is lower at 364 compared to 401 in 2023.
Kaya importante, at ito yung punto nito, maaaring kaya bumaba ang bilang na namamatay kasi maaga na po kumonsulta ang ating mga kababayan.
Like leptospirosis and gastroenteritis, Domingo said dengue symptoms also started with fever, headache, and body aches. So he emphasized how important it is to ask the doctor or the nearest health center to give first aid. As for leptospirosis, the DOH recorded an increase in the number of cases of this disease, which was more than 500 from August 8th to 13th.
Ito yung punto na nakita natin na dumami yung pasyente sa NKTI, San Lazaro at iba pa. Mula August 8 hanggang August 13, ang nadagdag natin na bagong leptospirosis cases ay 523 sa mga DOH hospitals.
From the said number, 43 have died from leptospirosis, 41 of them are adults, while 2 are children. Most of the recorded cases of death are in Metro Manila. Meanwhile, DOH ensured that hospitals have enough beds or wards for patients. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Riceline Catarong, SMNI News.
5 individuals were charged with murder today at the DOJ by the PNP-SAF following the killing of a beauty contestant, Geneva Lopez, and her Israeli boyfriend. Margaret Gonzalez is back with more news.
2 counts of murder were filed today by the PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group or PNP-CITG at the DOJ against 5 individuals following the alleged murder of beauty queen Geneva Lopez and her Israeli boyfriend Yitzhak Cohen. Among those charged are 2 former policemen. According to PNP-CITG Legal Division Chief Police Colonel Thomas Valmonte, there was a conspiracy involved in the murder of the couple.
May meeting silang ginawa. That's why merong allegation ng conspiracy. Nag-meeting sila at pinagplano nila ang actual na pagpatay doon sa dalawa. Kaya doon sa dalawang biktima. At merong dalawang yung talagang bumaril. Merong isa naman na kasama sa pag-dispose ng body, sabihin, ng paglibing ng katawan ng dalawang biktima. At meron na ibang tao na kasama rin sa plano na sinama rin namin sa complaint.
The motive is allegedly related to the suspect's dispute over land with the victims.
Based sa investigation, yung lupa ay isinanla ng mga respondents sa biktima. And parang gusto nilang bawiin yung lupa sa biktima, yung mga papers. Yung mga biktima, parang ayaw naman nilang ibigay kasi syempre meron silang binigay na pera, so dapat ibalik sa kanila yung pera. And ang nag-employ is may bibiling iba, may bibiling buyer, at itong mga respondents may buyer siya. Kaya napapunta itong dalawang biktima doon sa place kung saan sila nagkita, at ginaid sila papunta doon sa place kung saan naman in-execute yung kanilang planong pagpatay.
Currently, the authorities have apprehended the 4 suspects and are continuing the case build-up. In the filing, a witness came forward and submitted their confession or knowledge of the crime. Also in the filing was Geneva's sister, who seeks justice for her sibling.
Gusto namin na maging managot lahat ng mga may sala, at gusto namin na lahat sila walang matitira at maparusahan lahat sila.
It will be recalled that on June 21, Lopez and Cohen were reported missing. On July 6, authorities announced that the remains of the 2 were recovered in Barangay Santa Lucia, Capas, Tarlac City. For God and beloved Philippines, this has been Margaret Gonzalez, SMNI News.
Filipinos have mocked and called the National Economic and Development Authorities and NEDA's statement that those spending 21 pesos per meal are not considered food poor. A major joke. A consumer group has challenged the NED chief to try living on the 21 pesos per meal budget. China Turno with the report.
It's undeniable that many Filipinos are struggling due to the relentless increase of prices in the market. Kenneth's group, for example, usually goes to a eatery for lunch just to stretch their 100 pesos meal budget. But how far does a 100 pesos budget go in an eatery these days? The price of a single order of viand is currently around 60 pesos to 70 pesos. Rice is 15 pesos per cup, and soft drinks cost 25 pesos, totaling over 100 pesos for one meal.
Mahirap ma'am, lalo na sa katulad namin, minimum wage lang, na 645 lang ang isang araw namin.
But why did the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA say that in 2023, a person needs at least 64 pesos per day for sufficient food to meet their basic nutritional needs? This means that those who can spend 21 pesos per meal are not considered food poor. According to NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, this data is based on the 2023 food threshold of 9,581 per month for a family of 5. Filipinos immediately criticized the statement by the NEDA chief. They said it's only feasible if you eat only rice and salt at the moment. Others simply shake their heads and laugh at NEDA, calling it nonsense.
Wala ka namang bibili sa 21 pesos eh. Kahit sa tindahan, chichirya lang siguro. Pero sa pagkain, itlog lang, tama. Kulang pa yun. Wala pang kanin yun, te.
Malaking kalokohan yun ma'am. Kahit bata, bigyan mo 21 eh, baka pagalitan ka pa eh. Sabihin eh, isang kainan lang yun, mamamasahe pa.
Pero sa 21 na pag lumakpas ka, talagang hirap pagka ganoon lang ang budget mo.
The Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA mentioned a food menu that will serve as a basis for fitting a 21 pesos budget per meal. However, the pricing of the food basket for breakfast, lunch, and dinner may not be sufficient for the amount stated by NEDA. The United Filipino Consumers and Commuters or UFCC has challenged NEDA Secretary Balisacan to try living on a 64 pesos food budget per day. They believe that economic managers should experience living on such a minimal budget to understand how to manage it.
Ganyan na lang po sana ang maging almusal, tanghalian at hapunan araw-araw ng mga taga-NEDA. At yung mga economic managers natin, subukan po nila. Subukan po ng Department of Finance, subukan po ng Department of Budget and Management, subukan po ng NEDA. Hindi ko maintindihan bakit pinipilit nila na malayo sa katotohanan na pinagtatawanan na sila ng buong taong bayan.
This is seen as proof that the government does not understand the plight of Filipinos who struggle with hunger.
I think it's high time for the secretary to resign. Dahil nakakahiya po yung kanyang presentasyon. Huwag na nilang hintayin na hilahin pa sila ng taong bayan sa kanilang mga posisyon, palabas ng kanilang mga opisina. Insulto sa ating insulto sa katalinuhan nating mga Pilipino ang sinasabi ng NEDA. Malaking insulto yan.
PSA admits that the set food threshold for a person who is not considered food poor is insufficient to meet daily nutritional needs. However, the PSA clarifies that the food threshold is based on the cost of a cheap food prepared at home.
Hindi pwede na bibilin yung pagkain sa karinderya. Kasi pag binili mo yung pagkain sa karinderya, may services component yun eh. So hindi siya least cost. So kailangan niluluto. Kasi least talaga. I agree, this is really basic. Yung 64 pesos per day, most probably, a lot of people will not be happy about it. But that's how the bundle is arrived at.
The data may change as it is currently being reviewed for adjustment in 2025 to better reflect the actual situation faced by Filipinos. For God and for my beloved Philippines, this has been Sheena Torno, SMNI News.
To strengthen the Bureau of Fire Protection programs, it has been assured of additional funding from the Senate. Carlo de la Peña reports.
As the budget season begins in the Senate, Senator Cynthia Villar has assured an increase in the Bureau of Fire Protection's budget. This follows a request for assistance from the leadership of the Bureau of Fire Protection National Capital Region Police, led by BFP-NCR Director Superintendent Nahum Taroza, to Senator Villar to support their programs. In an interview, Superintendent Taroza mentioned that in addition to fire trucks, they also need ambulances.
Ang napaka-critical po sa mga medical emergency ay yung response time. Kasi ang pagkain po ng utak ay oxygen. So, pag nawalan po ng oxygen ng utak, patay ang tao. Eh kung malayo po ang isang ambulance, kahit po meron kang pinakamagandang ambulance, may nurse ka, may doktor ka doon, kung late ka naman dumating, wala rin.
According to Superintendent Taroza, the additional equipment will be used not only for fire responses, but also for medical emergencies. He added that around 9,000 BFP personnel have nursing degrees. Taroza made this statement during a media interview at the 33rd anniversary of BFP-NCR held at the Villar Sipag Complex, where Senator Cynthia Villar was the guest speaker. In her statement, Senator Villar assured that she would advocate in the Senate for an increase in the BFP's budget, particularly for BFP-NCR.
Pero kung may special request sila, I can attend the hearing and fight for it kung kailangan.
Aside from the Senate budget deliberations, the Villar family is also prepared to provide additional support for the BFP's needs to ensure public safety against fire. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SM9 News.
Up next, hundreds of students marched through the streets of Dhaka on Wednesday, calling for former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her Awan League to stand trial. Former President Donald Trump has promised a new economic boom if he wins the upcoming U.S. election, while cautioning that a loss could plunge the country into a depression reminiscent of 1929. More news when Newsline World returns.
Abangan ng Banateros tuwing Lunes hanggang Huwebes live dito lang sa SMNI.
ang banatero, walang inuurungan. Pag tama palakpakan, pag mali ay babanatan. Yan ang banatero.
Sabi nga nila, di ba? You will know them by their love. Yun ang sinabi sa Biblia. It's not on how good you are in quoting the scripture. It's giving love.
Grabe, hindi talaga hindi talaga kasya yung words eh. Kung paano natin i-express yung ating na-experience.
Mismo wala akong masabi. Kita ko kasi yung pagiging generous. Alam mo, madali kasi magsalita ng Diyos eh. Pero pagdating sa pera, pagdating sa pagiging generous, yung pagtulong sa iba, hindi biro yun. Maraming bagsak dyan. Maraming bagsak. Kaya ako nakikita ko yung pagiging generous niya. Hindi sa salita eh. Sa lakad. Bilib ako. Hindi dakdak. Nakita mo sa gawa. In one word, authentic.
Back to the news. The World Health Organization has taken decision actions in response to a rapidly spreading Mpox outbreak in Africa. The viral infection, which began in the Democratic Republic of Congo, has now spread to several neighboring countries. prompting the WHO to declare a global public health emergency for the second time in 2 years. Federico Veloso has a report.
The situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern.
An emergency committee met earlier today to advise World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus on whether the Mpox outbreak in Africa should be classified as a public health emergency of international concern. The said outbreak began with an endemic strain known as Clade 1. However, a new variant, Clade 1b, appears to spread more easily through routine close contact, including sexual contact.
The detection and rapid spread of a new clade of Mpox in eastern DRC, its detection in neighboring countries that had not previously reported Mpox, and the potential for further spread within Africa and beyond is very worrying.
This new variant has already spread to neighboring countries like Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda, prompting the World Health Organization latest declaration.
It's clear that a coordinated international response is essential to stop these outbreaks and save lives. A public health emergency of international concern is the highest level of alarm under international health law.
Earlier this week, Africa's top public health body also declared an Mpox emergency, noting the alarm spread of the virus across the continent. More than 17,000 suspected cases and over 500 deaths have been reported this year, mostly among children in Congo. Meanwhile, Tedros announced that the organization has already released 1.5 million contingency funds to combat the Mpox outbreak, with plans to allocate more funds in the coming days. The World Health Organization's response plan will require an initial $50 million, for which the agency will seek additional funding from donors. Mpox usually starts with a rash that can look similar to chickenpox, syphilis, or herpes. The rash typically progresses to small bumps on the skin, then to blisters that fill with whitish fluid. The illness is often accompanied by fever, headache, muscle aches, back pain, low energy, and swollen lymph nodes. Health authorities advise avoiding contact with items used by someone with Mpox, like utensils, bedding, and clothing. If Mpox is present in your home, ensure thorough cleaning and disinfecting. Regularly wash your hands with soap and water or use hand sanitizer, particularly before eating, touching your face, or after using the bathroom. This has been Federico Veloso, your Global Citizen correspondent for ASMA9 News.
As Asia undergoes a wave of political upheaval with leaders falling amid scandals and protests, the coming months will determine if this shift leads to genuine reform or increase in stability. Kim Sung will tell us more.
Vietnam, Bangladesh, Japan, Thailand, and Indonesia. These Asian countries are experiencing a remarkable wave of political upheaval. Top leaders are being ousted or resigning amid a series of scandals, public protests, and corruption allegations. This significant regional disruption highlights a period of intense political transformation and escalating demands for governance reforms across Asia. In March 2024, Vietnam's President Vo Van Tong was ousted as part of a major anti-corruption campaign, marking the second presidential departure in over a year and reflecting the Communist Party's efforts to combat corruption and regain public trust. In July 2024, Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina resigned following a massive protest triggered by job quota reforms and escalating into broader allegations of corruption, election fraud, and human rights abuses. On August 14, 2024, Thailand's Constitutional Court removed Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin due to ethical breaches related to appointing a minister with a criminal background, further destabilizing the country's political environment. Soon after, in August 2024, Indonesia's Airlangga Hartarto resigned as Golkar chairman amidst corruption allegations linked to palm oil export permits, adding to Indonesia's political turmoil. Japan is also preparing for a leadership change as Prime Minister Fumio Kishida plans to step down by September 2024. His resignation, driven by scandals and plummeting approval ratings, highlights ongoing challenges for Japan's Liberal Democratic Party. Professor Ana Malindugoy, a Filipino political analyst, has observed that the ongoing trend of leadership changes across Asia might signal a deeper systemic transformation or a form of political cleansing. Malindugoy also posed the question of who would be the next to fall amid a momentum of change, what the implications of these shifts would be, and how these changes might reshape the future political landscape and governance in these countries for the better. In the Philippines, calls for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the son of a former dictator, have intensified in recent months amid serious allegations including drug use, accusations of compromising national sovereignty by allowing the U.S. to use the country as a strategic base in a potential proxy war with China, rampant corruption, and abuse of power. Reporting from South Korea, this is Kim Sung, your global citizen correspondent for God in our beloved country, the Philippines.
Local residents in Japan reacted on the decision of their prime minister to step down in September. Ria Saito with the details.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's announcement that he will not seek re-election as party leader, effectively ending his term after 3 years, has sparked mixed reactions among Tokyo residents. Some argue that his departure should not absolve him of responsibility for Japan's economic struggles and a slush fund scandal involving his ruling party.
裏金問題ですとかですかね、誰かが責任を取らないと国民の自民党に対する不信感は拭えないので。
Kishida's support has waned in recent months, largely due to dissatisfaction over his handling of these issues. The scandal involves allegations that major party supporters provided money to LDP lawmakers through fundraising ticket sales without properly reporting these transactions as political donations. The Prime Minister also faced criticisms over Japan's economic performance, with wages lagging behind the rising cost of living after years of deflation.
周りがこうやっぱりなんかあれだよねみたいな、苦しいよねみたいな、いろいろ物価高騰だったりして、でも増税はやっぱりされるからなんかやっぱり大変だよねみたいな話はやっぱり周りの人いっぱいしてるんで。
Kishida's response to a recent national disaster has also been under scrutiny. In January, a major earthquake struck Ishikawa Prefecture, and residents have criticized the slow recovery efforts, including delays in restoring water supply and inadequate housing for the elderly.
お正月に石川県の方で地震があった、大きな地震があって、それのニュースを見てると、まだ水道も復旧しないとか、まだお年寄りが仮設住宅にも住めなくて、その避難所にいるとかっていうのを、もう半年経ってもまだそんなニュースを見ると、もうちょっと日本のことを見てほしいなっていうのが。
As Kishida prepares to step down, questions remain about the future direction of the LDP and how it will address the economic and political challenges that have eroded public confidence in the party. Reporting from Tokyo, Japan, this has been Ria Saito, your global citizen correspondent for God in our beloved country, the Philippines.
Pro-Palestine protesters rallied outside Kamala Harris' campaign event in Manhattan on Wednesday, calling her the VP of genocide and demanding an arms embargo on Israel following the Biden administration approval of $20 billion arms sale to the country. Melchizedek Cadiz reports.
She is here! The VP of genocide!
This is one of the chants outside Kamala Harris' campaign event on Wednesday. The crowd holding Palestinian flags and banners with messages like "No empty words, embargo now," marched through Manhattan, demanding an end to arms sales to Israel. One protester, Alice, shared that she and others were initially happy about supporting Harris' Democratic presidential campaign. However, following the approval of billions of dollars in arms sales to Israel by Joe Biden, she now feels conflicted and uncertain about her support.
The people got very happy about Kamala Harris, and people started giving money to the campaign, so things felt more relaxed for the Democrats. Then Biden went and gave, I forgot what it was, 6,500 weapons, like billions of dollars in weapons to Israel. And then Israel started killing, and they killed and they killed and they killed. This is all the last week. So the killing has accelerated. They blew up like 100 people in that mosque school. bodies all over the place. It made things exponentially worse and kicked people out of the refugee camp. And I really, to me it seemed like it was a result of having a successful Democratic Party campaign. So I don't know what the hell to do. I really don't. I mean, I'm very, very, very frustrated.
The protest comes in response the U.S. government approved over $20 billion in arms deal with Israel, including new F-15 fighter jets and advanced air-to-air missiles. Meanwhile, in a post on X, formerly Twitter, on August 8, Biden administration official Phil Gordon stated that Harris does not support an arms embargo against Israel. On the other hand, Harris has not criticized Biden's or Israel's actions in Gaza, but she has explicitly addressed the scale of human suffering among Palestinians. She has stated that she will not be silent and believes a two-state solution must ensure the Palestinians can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination. Israel declared war on Hamas and a complete siege of Gaza with a large-scale campaign of airstrikes, with Israeli leaders vowing to wipe out Hamas. Recently, Palestinian officials reported that about 40,000 people had been killed and more than 92,000 injured since Hamas launched an airstrike on October 7th. The Israeli Defense Force claimed that Hamas locations and infrastructure were targeted in the response. United Nations experts warned against collective punishment for the people of Gaza before predicting a humanitarian crisis, and then claimed that hell is settling in for the region. Reporting from Kuwait, I am Melchizedek Cadiz, your global citizen correspondent for God and for our beloved country, the Philippines.
Two astronauts could be held 8 months longer in space due to problems of flight test mission by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. Here's Sara Santos for more details.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff of Starliner and Atlas V.
The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, held a media teleconference on Wednesday to give updates on the Boeing Starliner crew flight test mission, as well as the condition of the two astronauts aboard, Sunita Williams and Barry Butch Wilmore. The said spacecraft is currently stuck on the International Space Station, or ISS, unable to leave. The two veteran astronauts were launched into space aboard the Boeing Starliner on the 5th of June for their third station mission, which was only supposed to last 8 days. The said mission is the first crewed flight of the Boeing Starliner. After more than 2 months, they still haven't returned to Earth due to the spacecraft experiencing thruster problems and helium leaks. One of the options being considered by NASA to get the two back home is to have them join the SpaceX Crew Dragon mission that is set to launch in September and return to Earth on February the following year. This could mean that Williams and Wilmore could be held 8 months longer in space.
I do want to put this into perspective. If Butch and Sonny do not come home on Starliner and they are kept aboard the station, they will have about 8 months on orbit.
Akaba stressed that even before Williams and Wilmore were launched into space aboard the Starliner, they were already aware that the mission could face problems.
This mission is a test flight, and as Butch and Sonny expressed, ahead of their launch, they knew this mission might not be perfect. Human spaceflight is inherently risky, and as astronauts, we accept that as part of the job. Right now, the agency has taken the time to ensure we are not putting the crew at a higher risk than is necessary.
The chief astronaut also ensured that Williams and Wilmore are in good condition.
As I assign crew members to a flight, and before they launch, we discuss nominal and potential off-nominal mission durations. They are always prepared. We are lucky to be in a time in human spaceflight where we have regular resupply missions, enabling the crews aboard the station to receive any extra supplies they may need, and where an 8-month mission falls within our standard long-duration mission timeframe. I've talked to Butch and Sonny a number of times throughout their stay, and they continue to be committed to the mission.
Meanwhile, NASA stated that a final decision on how to bring the two astronauts back to Earth will be made by the end of August. Reporting, this has been Sara Santos, SMNI News.
Former President Donald Trump has vowed a new economic boom if he wins the upcoming U.S. election, while warning that a loss could plunge the country into a depression reminiscent of 1929. Angel Pastor reports.
Donald Trump has pledged that if he wins the 2024 presidential election, it will usher in a new economic boom, but warned that a loss could lead to a 1929-style depression. In a long-hour speech in Asheville, North Carolina that was focused on economy, Trump promised to bring down the price of cars, housing insurance, and prescription drugs. He lashed out the government for overseeing a rise in consumer prices. He also said that Kamala Harris' economic plan is no different with the current administration of Joe Biden.
When Kamala lays out her fake economic plan this week, remember, she goes to work every morning in the West Wing. Her desk is 10 steps from the Oval Office. She cast the tie-breaking votes that gave us record inflation, and for nearly 4 years, Kamala has crackled as the American economy has burned.
Trump also promised to continue his 27 tax cuts and pledged the government would pay off the American debts. Meanwhile, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget disclosed that this proposal of the former president regarding tax cuts continuation and Jobs Act would add $5 trillion to deficits through 2025. Trump also criticized the Biden administration's energy policies, including blocking mining in Alaska and fracking in Pennsylvania. He promised to reopen coal plants nationwide to help drive down energy prices. To recall, under the current administration, U.S. energy prices increased by more than 30% in the year before Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine drove prices even higher. Reporting, this has been Angel Pastor, SMNI News.
Students in Dhaka are making their voices heard, calling for their fundamental rights and the persecution of the Awami League. Their protests underscore a critical demand for accountability in the protection of the democratic principles in Bangladesh. Let's hear the report from Owela Bunda.
Hundreds of students took to the streets of Dhaka on Wednesday, calling for former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League to be put on trial. Footage captured the demonstrators marching with Bangladesh flags, chanting slogans and listening to speeches. This comes after a court in Bangladesh opened a murder investigation against Sheikh Hasina and 6 senior members of her administration, following the deaths of several protesters during civil unrest. Hasina resigned after weeks of anti-government protests initially sparked by student opposition to the quota system for government jobs, which reserved a third of public sector positions for relatives of those who fought in the 1971 Independence War. The protest escalated into violent clashes, leaving over 40 people dead as demonstrators stormed government buildings, including Hasina's official residence. With Hasina's 15-year tenure marked by increasing unrest, President Mohamed Shahabuddin initiated discussions with political parties, the military, and protesters before appointing Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus as interim leader. In an exclusive interview with SMNI, student protesters from Bangladesh recounted their experiences and commitment to defending democracy as the youth of their nation. For Tamjidul Hoke, what began as protests over water control for farming jobs escalated to demands for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation.
I think it's a very good example of how trying to control everything through power and force is never really a good idea. If you follow the situation in Bangladesh, you would know that the protests were initially about quota reform in government jobs, not about government's resignation. It was only after the violent crackdowns that the protesters demanded Prime Minister to exit.
He added that this situation underscores the necessity for leaders to handle citizens' demands.
I think this shows that every leader of the country should show more respect and kindness towards their people and towards their demands instead of violently cracking down and causing lives to be lost.
Meanwhile, for Asif Azad, a content creator in Bangladesh, shared that this was the first time that they've truly experienced freedom and democracy.
For the first time, we're genuinely feeling and experiencing the freedom, the independence,
and the democracy. The brave students who took charge, who initiated and led the protest, the movement. Later on, the entire nation joined, and collectively our unity, our people, we got our Bangladesh back, and nothing feels better than this, honestly, because we have been...
Asif Azad, reflecting on the significance of this moment, shared his overwhelming pride as a Bangladeshi, acknowledging the long-awaited realization of the freedom their forefathers fought for over 5 decades ago.
This is the best I have ever felt as a Bangladeshi. It is surreal. This is something that we always wanted, but as a nation, we never got to experience the freedom that our freedom fighters fought for 53 years back.
Asif Azad also sent a clear message to those in power, emphasizing the strength of a united people and cautioning against the dangers of dictatorship.
Well, dictatorship is something that should not be there, right? I don't know much about politics, but to all the dictators out there, you better take notes, because when people unite, just see what happened to Bangladesh. Because this line I've always heard, but now I genuinely felt what it means. Government for the people, of the people, by the people. So never, never, never underestimate the people.
The fall of Sheikh Hasina is arguably the most significant political event in the history of post-independent Bangladesh. Her 1.5-decade grip on power has finally been shaken loose by a mass uprising led by students. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, this has been Wella Abunda, SMNI News.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the Son. Injustice provokes God in His anger and invites His judgment. And that's all for this edition. For more updates, you may visit smninewschannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and Country, I'm Deivid Lira, and this is Newsline World.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on the notification bell to keep you up to date. Also visit our official social media accounts and join our community on Viber and Telegram.